Sorry.
I'm in charge.
I didn't print out copies for everybody this time. I think you agreed that you didn't need them last time. I got them on that's it. So, but there are a couple that I'm happy to leave behind if anyone is wanting a hard copy.
On the screen if you like, or
Has everyone got it on there? We're all good. Thank you.
Yeah, so look, as always, a snapshot of where our various work streams are at. Happy to take questions or happy to run through any specific items that you'd like to delve into a little further. Is that the way you'd like to
Well, should we just go block by block? I think let's just start with property. Rather than having to go through them, let's see if there's any questions around property, around transport, rather than going line by line. So property is.
I had a couple of questions, mainly to do with the airport base infrastructure, because this came up and it was one of the things because of you trying to decide who was going to manage it, I think, between QLDC and QAC. And that actually it slipped from last year. It was on the CEO's KPIs, and that was one of the things that dropped that. So you say you were appointing a consultant firm, yeah? So what can you give an update where how that's going?
Wānaka report. So
yeah, I understand QAC are going to manage the infrastructure, the base infrastructure to get us compliant with the landlord. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The wastewater, not quite. Water.
Yeah, so we have a water supply upgrade project.
Yeah, I got that.
Kick off.
Yeah.
That's the only one I'm aware of that's currently in commission, so to speak.
So I think the conversation was there's a whole lot of physical activity that needs to be done at Wānaka Airport. There's water and other things, and there's
and wastewater retake.
Wastewater retake, and there's also the CAA requirements. And that's been coordinated through QAC. So we've got someone on the site because it's the best way of coordinating.
Yeah, and I'm happy with that. I just apart from the compliance, what do you call it, the last thing you mentioned, but because we were looking at trying to get the base infrastructure as a landlord, and that was what was in under the CO KPIs last financial year, and it dropped. It didn't happen because I understood you were still working your way through it between QAC and QLDC, who was actually going to manage, the wastewater, the Wi-Fi, whatever had to be done at that base level. Nothing to do with compliance or anything. It's more to do with the. So that it was quite keen to understand how that's progressing, because we've got all this review going over here, but over here as a landlord, we've got to make sure we're up to speed in getting that done.
So as an add-on to the Lugga water supply project that is just kicking off, there is some water main upgrades going to go on at the airport, which also includes improved firefighting. But this is trunk infrastructure only at this time. More broadly, in terms of wastewater, I believe as we've described here, that there is a consultant on board now for further development of the the infrastructure needs at the airport. I don't have a lot of detail.
That's all right. No, I really just want to understand whether you're running that project consultant firm or QAC. I understood it was going to be QAC. I'm not complaining. I just want to understand where it sits.
QAC will be coordinating. But we're still running those projects. But there's a whole lot of stuff that's happening on the airport side, building for QAC to coordinate is the various activities, and also the timing. Around the runway sort of stuff. But I think the QAC stuff's more around the CAA upgrades between the timing, working with the.
I understand that. I was more interested in the base infrastructure.
Base infrastructure bit stuff that we should be on to, so we're now onto it. So it is a bit delayed, but we're now working through it.
This first project, the water supply, is essentially an opportunity project because we've got this bigger project working alongside it, and this is a wee addition.
Excellent. Okay.
Anything else for you?
Not on the property. Was it?
Have we started marketing the Ironside Drive yet?
Early September.
We're
for
Are they?
Who's the agent? Who's the agent?
Look very rough.
Anything else around the property team, renewals, the airport or property Ironside Drive?
The only one to make is the new facilities maintenance contract, which we've got with City is proving very good. They've been very responsive, getting good, really good information from them around the nature of our properties and stuff. It's actually solved a whole lot of issues for us and actually much better level of service with that. Prompt, they seem to be well into it, which is good. But if you do hear anything about them, either positive or negative, it's in here. But they so far seem to hit the ground running with providing service. So, yeah.
Wonderful. To move on to transport, there's a number of items there that have sort of been in for a little while. Is questions emanating from any of these?
Yeah, the Cane Road improvements, I know the speed limit review is coming through, but there's a budget in the minor improvements project. What is actually proposed for that site? Because
Which side, sorry?
Cane Road, there was a windmill corner, it's just on the first line,
Cheers.
minor improvement.
With delivery of Cane Road improvements. We'll understand what the
The
improvements are.
targeted construction that summer, so has that ended up as a LED sign or has it ended up as something else?
I don't know how to answer that question.
I don't know the detail.
Yeah,
So find out.
Yeah, I think we need to get the answer there because when we talk about Cane Road and Wimble Corners, we're talking about quite a long, what exactly are the interventions there?
exactly.
I mean, is it the corners? Is it the,
Well, there's none of the speed limits been like proposed,
Yeah.
will come to proposal, in the consultation document that the construction committee are looking at. But I feel like this is a different piece of work on, set of speed limit.
will you mind coming back to us, Simon, on that? Just
Yep.
Johnny, what is the,
We're just going to message now.
Yeah,
the response.
shouldn't say detailed design, but it's been talked conceptually and then it's in the plan, which is great. Execution this summer, but we're still not sure what's happening.
Yeah.
So we'll just make sure there's aligned expectations around, well, not even expectation, we'll make sure the community knows if something's happening.
Yeah,
Something else is going to happen and then they're disappointed.
And there was some feedback about foot and cycle access through that area as well, to be quite keen to see if that's been incorporated into that design.
Yes. Okay. We'll see if we can get that before the end of the meeting. What else, team?
There's nothing on here about the Golf Course Road roundabout that I can see, but I'm just concerned at the moment that if it's still going to be 26, 27 at least before that happens, that something needs to happen to improve that mini roundabout. The paint has disappeared, it's full of potholes that have been filled. It's just maybe something more temporary needs to be done there in the short term, just to tidy that up.
Quite dangerous at the moment. People don't know whether it is a roundabout or it isn't a roundabout.
Just leaving a coat of paint and smoothing it, or just raising it a fraction, just so it's a bit more visible.
Okay.
If the proper one is, still 2 years away.
Well, it's not, they're down for next year, but
We're in the spring 2026, but so a year from now.
Probably a good point there, John, that if it was raised and slightly combi, it would just encourage more people.
Well, it's probably okay to drive across it, but it indicates it's actually a roundabout.
Yeah.
It it's indication.
the paintwork will do it because it starts spending too much money.
Yeah.
So it's,
You don't want to spend much, but
I
it
don't think there's too many problems here.
does need something.
If anything, you put a jut about the Valentine Road in like you have up the town end, because the traffic comes up over that, up that gully real fast.
Yeah.
But if we were doing anything, you just bang another bloody jutta bar in there, but that will all.
There's a spare one by the library.
Yeah, I know several round there. That's severe. Gee.
Sorry, stop going through there, which is probably what they wanted.
Yeah. You quite likely to meet cyclists coming the other way with children on the back of their bikes, which gives me willies.
Oh, sorry, there's.
That's 26.
I was just looking for
That's 27. Okay, so there's an action, just a level of service maintenance thing, which you're right, a year in its current state is not going to fly because it's degraded and it's lost its impact of what it's actually made for.
But it does work really well. It's not great driving through that multiple times a day. It works really well generally.
Is having some value there.
And far better than what it was previously.
Oh, yeah.
I like it when there's three vehicles there all giving way to. The music goes, the boldest, the next gets stand off.
But anyway, everyone's stopping and pausing.
I don't know.
Okay.
What else around?
Just that we haven't seen, I'm a bit sad that we haven't sort of had any parking strategy documents to actually work on this term as being part of the community board. All they've pushed out to next year, which, I think from a board member's perspective, mine anyway, it's been disappointing.
Note that, yes, we'd have to get those out. But resourcing problems. We can just say that that's going to be quite big topic of conversation.
It's going to be controversial, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't need to take another full term though to actually get any result.
Okay.
Three Waters. I noticed what had dropped off that Beacon Point Road, unless it's changed into something else.
That's there, the mediation's finished.
Yes.
North Wānaka wastewater conveyance stage 2, third from the bottom.
Ah, so, okay, I was looking for the Beacon Point Road.
No,
Keyword.
that's mentioned.
Yeah, okay.
This is the correct project name.
Cool.
Thank you. And it certainly does relate to the wastewater pump station.
Okay, and so does the mediation lead to any change in placement or design or?
Some
location?
no change in terms of location,
Yes.
just some refinement around the design. So the design, just doing a gap analysis currently, given that the design is several years old.
Yes.
And actually there is a report now complete. So we hope to back into preparing for physical works in the near term.
Yeah, so it says a contract for construction likely go to market before Christmas. So we're not really expecting to start, then that start won't be until March time probably.
That's right.
Okay.
Few questions around how we're moving on service improvements and supply schemes. I know recently upgraded the bores in terms of how much you can get through.
Yep, some power.
Yeah, are you looking at another line as well for fresh water?
So I guess that the whole level of service is currently being considered in terms of how to, I guess, ensure we have adequate yield, treatment and retake.
And one of the big obvious things in front of mind is like the fast track application from Contact and what sort of effects that has. If you guys gone through the process to understand how consequential that'll be or how much that'll end up. It's been anecdotal.
In terms of the hydraulic constraints that it may place on the water supply.
Yeah, like saying, okay, we lose, say, 50 or 60% of our capacity, which means X amount of investment, or like, has that been scoped as a submission to?
No, not directly.
No.
So it's.
So, but it has been included in the submission, because I understand that they don't have water supply.
We just don't know how much it's really going to have an impact.
No, so that work is just kicking off as part of the, I guess, the broader hardware water supply scheme and need.
Yeah. The other thing was I forgot the way water conveyance scheme. It's great. Yeah, I know we keep celebrating. Jennings God basically was going to be end of August. Is that sort of started in terms of construction?
Yes, absolutely. They're just getting underway now. We're just finalising program and just getting prepared on site. Surveyors occurring, construction surveyors occurring. So yes, it's very much imminent that you'll see machinery and personnel out on site on multiple fronts.
Nice.
Just as an adjunct to that, we're also just kicking off the master planning for the inlet works of Project Pure to ensure that we cater for the pipe connection in a timely fashion, so that i.e. as the pipe is constructed, it's got somewhere to connect in. Sounds logical, but because they're two different elements, it's just making sure that we're tying those together in a logical fashion.
Yeah, appreciate the holistic approach.
Yeah, it's nothing worse when they don't join.
That's going to be slightly
Get the wiggle.
Will there be a presentation to the Hardware Community Association or just explaining the process? All the Copenhagen guys came to the Wānaka Community Association the other night, did a great job getting everyone up to date with what's happening and so forth.
Well, definitely the Wānaka water one.
You know, there's 3 Copenhagen guys there and everyone that was present went away well informed and pretty happy with the process and how it's going to happen.
There would probably need to be the Albert Town as well as the Hardware Community Association for that presentation.
It's a good way to front foot it. It's a good speech.
I will certainly talk to the
Just on the Project Pure, the acceptance reception, you're moving it from Ballantyne Road to Project Pure, aren't you?
correct.
Yeah. So that's still a wee way off, is it? Or
So that's being considered as part of the
Part of the-
master planning work.
Okay.
Yes, that's certainly part of that master planning and design for the inlet works. It will at least be catered for.
yeah. Yeah. This on the, as you can see, there's a lot of work going on the Ballantyne site for sports fields, but tying it in with the Southwest Wānaka wastewater conveyance scheme. You know, I heard when I was travelling with Rob Darby the other day that they're talking about another pump station there somewhere as part of that scheme. So just making sure that if you get liaised with it, I was outside of Patrick and that, or who's project managing that, if there's any infrastructure for this wastewater conveyance scheme that impacts on that site, we really need to know quite soon.
Yes and no. For the current project, so the Southwest Wānaka wastewater has been refined down to the Gordon Road pump station upgrades at this time.
Oh, okay.
Whilst the rest is still being essentially master planned.
Okay.
So there's no direct impact
Okay.
on the Valentine Road site, other than the removal of the septage,
Okay.
which we're currently working on.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have a ballpark for that, when that might occur?
What, Gordon Road? Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
It's certainly on the near horizon. In fact, in terms of design, whether it is constructed as part of the Upper Clutha wastewater conveyance, I'm just cautious to say whether it will or it won't at this time, but it's certainly been catered for. And given Simon Patrick and the needs around the Valentine Road site, very cognizant of that, to ensure that we can align as closely as we can.
I think we're just very concerned that if we get the opportunity to develop that, we don't have anything stopping us from.
Yes, I think point noted. Yep.
Tom, do you guys have any insights into the Rockabilly Gully erosion protection?
Yep, sure. Anything specific there?
Well, it's that just trying to know the relationship between Hikawai and North Lake developers. Are we basically, was this always envisaged there was going to be a problem, or was it just the volume of water that's coming down there was far greater than we ever expected, and therefore we're having to do sort of retrospective remediation in that area? I'm just trying to understand the link between the development and the need for this project.
Yeah, so certainly it is an outcome of development. I'm not sure that I can answer your question specifically around who might be responsible for that. I guess we're trying to address an outcome, which is the erosion of the gully.
Yeah.
The project is broken into two key sections. One is the remediation pond or ponds at the top of the gully, and one is a sympathetic design down through the gully that I guess addresses docks needs, requirements, perspective, if you like. So we're attempting to soften the design down through the gully to prevent erosion without creating an overly engineered solution. So we're certainly focused on the ponds, on the detention, and then.
So those are the ponds on Outlet Road.
Yes.
Okay, but they're in place. What need?
No, this is further ponds to protect the gully.
So not the current ones.
No, so this is essentially holding any flow that comes out.
Yes.
This is essentially holding it back so that it is an engineered volume that ends up in that gully. So there's a series of ponds that can contain that storm event, and then discharge it at a given rate.
On the left-hand side going down, it's already done. They've got dams staged. It's on the right-hand side, it's not. So I'm, as a non-engineer, and would thought simple thing would be to start staging it like we've done at Albertown. And
something very similar, that's right.
And so then that flows the thing all the way down. But I'd be really interested to see what they're going to do down through the gully, because I've walked down through there, and how the hell you even get in there? I think the bigger issue is down the bottom, making sure there's a good culvert under the track, because every time it rains, it washes the track out. But it's going down through that gully, geez. You have to be using, if you're going to put anything, you're basically using helicopters. I don't know what you'd be using.
No, we do plan to get machinery in there, but again, we're planning to do it on a fairly small scale, partly because DOC has advocated firmly for a minimally engineered solution.
Okay. Yeah, but okay, well, you have to be careful with getting vehicles in there. You have to create a road or something.
That's right. It will.
You've got to look at the impact of that versus what's already happened, and whether that'll happen again. I don't think so, but maybe it will. If you do all the thing at the top. Anyway, I'm not an engineer. I'm just thinking that I'm really nervous that, okay, to satisfy DOC, we can end up, what we're going to create. So I still believe that down the bottom, I haven't looked at it yet, they do need some good sort of culvert under that path.
I just took a note of that.
Yeah, I mean, every time there's a rain event, it basically makes it outlet track almost impassable there. And
yes, if you work
in the absence of a culvert there, like I wrote it this morning, at 7 o'clock it's dry and stuff, but there's still a very definite and then not only does the water come down, but then it brings all the rocks down as well.
And
So,
the sediment load.
and then with sediment load. So who's going to be paying? Do the developers bear any cost for this, or is this all coming on the ratepayer?
I believe this is a council lead project.
There's quite a lot of investigation around them discussions with the developers up there and the liability responsibility, and the liability sits with the council. I mean, it's our discharge point below the road in that sense.
So we're only discharging, but the volumes we're discharging is being created by the
There's long history
Yeah.
we've had and understanding there's been various work, including potentially taking North Lake to court around the nature of it. It's a reasonably complicated sort of back story where I think North Lake and Dickwell, Willerich, was it?
Peak away? No, they're talking about
Specific examples of where
Alpha
examples of where the designed stormwater solutions failed to meet that criteria. And there's quite a history with doing a lot better on that now, without historical in some ways. So there's a sort of a bit of a legacy there, unfortunately.
With the, if you're talking about additional ponds potentially, are they between the existing ones that just before Rockabilly, in that area?
That's
So
right.
there's some land there.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
There's already one great big pond.
Yeah, no, so it's,
Put dams
yeah.
to stop it, it goes down,
Yeah.
up, over, down, up.
So it's just a series of weeds.
Lower down.
Basically, isn't it?
No, there was actually a fairly significant pond there created with a controlled outlet so that not only is it ways to slow the velocity down, but this will actually regulate the volume. So basically the rain comes, the pond fills up and it decants slowly over time to ensure that adequate volume into the gully to ensure that erosion isn't occurring.
It'd be quite interesting to see that design because there's a desire for pedestrian link past those ponds into that Higawai Reserve at that point. So it'd be quite good to see if we can integrate.
I've just taken a note around that request to see the design.
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to see, sorry, just one moment, there will be a specimen design that we'll then work closely with the contractors on to ensure that it's constructible in I guess, an efficient and cost-effective manner. Because again, we don't want, my understanding is that we don't want a fully sort of engineered, a very harsh design down through that gully. Sorry, please.
Just, thank you, through the chair, just wondering if in fact, as we know, we failed with this design in several locations, Alpha Series being one. Is there alternative considerations for subs type engineering processes with integration of wetlands and using the landscape to work with the water flow?
So that's what we're hoping to achieve.
So we're going to have two considerations, or are you just going with the engineered solution for design?
So we're looking to soften the engineer design and overlay some low impact considerations to that. And again, this softer approach is to ensure that, for instance, that there is adequate planting alongside the gully, other softening elements. Is that what you're referring to?
Oh, I think the whole essence of not capturing water and controlling it, allowing the landscape to use the water in beneficial ways, and a Te Ao Māori principle to lead that along the lines of restorative cloaking of plantings should all be in there. It should all be in the mix to lead to that satisfactory outcome, because if it's just an engineered solution that's been on the table, it's one that's already failed. Why do we keep doing this?
Point taken, thank you.
I appreciate the perspective, because I think as well, I've asked around why Wānaka could fit within its ECO in terms of stormwater solutions, because it's a problem that we keep sort of coming across. But I know that's just a relationship they need to build with the new entity, but to just sort of champion further those natural biophilic solutions, and given
We have the land and it uses the water really well.
and
If we don't try to control the water, and that's what we've been trying to do all the time. There's boardwalks and wetlands. Sorry. Go for it. I promise.
That's good. Thank you for that worthwhile discussion around that Rockabilly. It's coming. I appreciate that. Anything else around water before we move on?
I would just say the Rockabilly design is currently being worked on. We hope to have a concept design this year. So that'll be a great opportunity.
Please share that. Yeah, only just because it does interface with so many different other aspects of community use around that area. Just making sure it's all being taken into account. Waste, been a bit of activity in the waste area in the last couple of weeks. Some good news, a couple of good news stories. The letter of intent, which were all agreed for Wastebusters, and also the RTS getting signed off. Questions rising for Simon and Tony around this?
Expression of interest process, it says early September, is that out at the moment? Yes.
Yes. This is
Okay.
for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how long is that out for typically?
6 weeks, something like that, was it?
And that's a very broad request, isn't it? Just a concept of different locations or?
There's quite a detailed RFP, but it is looking for partners saying, looking for somebody who can provide us with our recycling facilities, and we've put in the Valentine Road site as an option.
Right.
But it's not limited to that.
Yep.
So in the process, we'll hopefully attract a bit of interest, and then they're shortlisted. And essentially what we're asking them to do is give us their best, the best options that they think will, serve the district best. So it's kind of open in that sense.
Nice.
Cool. We're expecting quite a bit of interest. And leaves it to the market also to come back with what they think will be the best long-term option. There's quite a long-term, contract on offer here.
Yeah. And so if it sounds really naive, because I haven't been fully across this, is this just for the Wānaka ward, or will this be district wide?
Right, and potentially, it's also opening the door for provider wants to deal with central.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, it's leaving that sort of door open.
Yeah.
If you look at the RFP, it's got the Moscow approach, which is the must-have, should have, could have.
Yeah.
So, and allowing tenders to come back and go, here's what you want, some options, and then some other options. So hoping we'll get a good response to that.
What's the interface with the move and the Wastebusters? Is there any crossover there, or?
It's more the allocation of, like the amount of space that we need for land for the moon, and that's sort of why there's not tension, but it's just sort of that holding space. But I think every plan I've seen has sort of directed the RTS and allocations for the MRF and Wastebusters 2.0 in a pretty considered, holistic fashion. So I don't think there isn't an appetite to accommodate it appropriately. I think it can all fit really well. I guess, like Tony's saying, it just comes down to what people present and what solutions they come to market, because it could be, other things that are part of it that might collaborate and add a bit more space. I don't know. I'm talking to people around plastic recycling and sort of bold ideas around that, but I'm also talking to Wastebusters in the same conversations too. And it's like, well, if this becomes the waste maker, how do we integrate these things?
Well, I'm going to say, will there be duplication of services, or everything's quite reasonably defined that there is no crossover?
I think the ultimate design will have a degree of crossover potentially, but if we get an RFP proposal that wants to use Valentine Road site, then the overall site design will be reflected around that. Both in terms of the transfer station, a move. And we think there is room for Wastebusters. It's just the ultimate configuration.
Yeah.
So, an ideal situation might be all of it located on the broader Valentine Road site that fits in, but we just don't know that.
Yeah. Is it green waste as well still going to, or is there any?
I think it's part of waste. The commercial green waste is part of Wastebusters land, but then I think Central Otago was looking to build a green waste plant.
Okay.
For the more district-wide approach, I think.
The rest of the
For the actual curbside collection.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
for the green waste collection we're looking to do, but we need that Central Otago. So it may be that doesn't pan out. It might be another opportunity for us.
It's not compulsory. Because Wastebusters started a commercial one. Actually, taking it to the current green waste site.
Yeah, exactly. So,
There's a lot of commercial stuff which gets it out of the mental.
Yeah, of course, recent purchase in the Valentine Road site was to provide that option. But the move, because it's quite an investment, quite a long term, we're looking to go to market and tell us think what it is, what's, give us your best shot.
That's
I think you end up trying to add bits and pieces on and focus on the commercial delivery point of view.
Any other questions, observations around waste team?
What about the comms in that area? Is there good public communications going out in regard to what's happening at the Wastebusters site and where we're kind of heading, or do you, you know?
I'm not aware of anything in particular. It's sort of still a degree of uncertainty. You know, as Leah said, you know, people can provide that, then we just can't commit to.
But even just saying there's a request for price out on gets for this is a good introduction of discussion for the community. So there's a lot of people that don't have any idea of what's happening in the community.
I don't know if we'll put that on.
Because once it's out on gets, it's public knowledge. So it's just a nice way of including the community in that discussion.
I can certainly have a flip sheet. Okay.
Couple other things there was the Cape Wave extension, water main extension, and the new CCO being set up, water services.
Yeah. So Colin and I have been take over one of the spec cabinet next week, I think. We're trying to meet with the developer around how we deliver Cape and the water infrastructure. It's just water, isn't it?
Yes, so water and roading and active travel pathway, and essentially attempting to collaborate and deliver the whole bundle of work, if you like, in a timely fashion.
You across this?
yeah, some of my questions. Is there scope to compromise in terms of this going with the carved out car parks, or going with, because I feel like that was the last time that it all sort of blew up. And I'm just wondering how you're going into the conversation and where you feel like there's room to move, considering the delays. Yeah.
That certainly forms part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Is there a specific point you'd like?
I know wants to build a big wide road.
Yep.
I know council's typical code of practice is to build cutouts and build a narrow road, so that there's space for trees and gets a lot of people down. I was just wondering, going into that conversation, if you're open-minded to compromising, considering the time and costs and other sort of factors in there.
I anticipate there'll be some compromise.
Yeah.
And the active travel path that's already along the unformed Cape Road, that's going to remain separate from the road. Not going to be an on-road.
No, it will remain separate from the road, but it may become more like a footpath.
Yeah, as long as it's wide enough for both for dual use, that's absolutely fine.
Maybe call it sheep path rather than active path.
Yeah.
Is this project a candidate for, they've done it previously, a developer's agreement with the developer for him to do it, and he's got to do the, he did the water through 3 parks.
That's what we're talking to him this week.
Excellent.
Yeah, and he's got obligations as the developer. He has to form part of that road.
Yeah, we're marketing all the houses beside it right now, so.
Yes. No, the guy was it's my signature on the tripartite agreement that was done a long time ago with the land blocking SHA. We were trying to and that's sort of fell by the wayside for a variety of reasons. So just coming back and going, so how do we deliver this? How do we deliver the entire connection all the way through? Including the spend up the top and water, do it all at once. And trying to have that. So someone coming over to meet face to face with Alan to try and get through.
Another part that's relevant but may not be in your domain is that those sections that have been proposed, the bottom of it was supposed to be where Tinsford Park was, and he sort of pushed it over to the next stage again, which makes it more central and closer to where we've already got other facilities. I don't know if that's a question, I mean, obviously it's like a planning thing more so than infrastructure, but just to seek some clarification around the timing of that, because it literally keeps getting kicked down the road. And then by the end of it, it'll be a park in the far corner of the whole subdivision that doesn't actually have access for most of the users. So it's just something to keep in mind.
I don't know where it's at, but
So it's location and timing.
Yeah, because previously it had it at the bottom of, it's now turned into lots.
We've had that issue with Peninsula Bay where that land open space reserve was to be vested when the subdivision was finished.
Mm.
Then the developer said we want to develop more there, and if you don't give us that more development, we'll never finish a subdivision or we'll never vest the park. So that's something we need to be very aware of with.
Yeah,
You wouldn't
I
do
mean,
that.
I hope there's been a
That's
conversation.
exactly what happened.
I know, I'm being cynical.
Yeah, you've been sort of.
Sorry, I
Yes,
missed that.
Sorry, I should keep my sarcasm.
yeah.
That's right, I'll just shut up.
It's I know it feels like micromanaging, but it's always really helpful to go through this.
No, it's right.
I'm sure that Parks, Jean will be across it. Having had these sort of discussions with likes of Jean in the past, enormous frustration around that very behaviour.
Yeah, you know, I think it's something that we need to push strong on.
Yeah, we got held over a barrel at Peninsula Bay, and then they got 4 more sections. Infinity got 4 more sections out of it
Right.
when they should have got anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Middle, just for not saying, well, we're just not going to
It seems to
close, we're not going to finish it off. Yeah, it's frustrating. Anyway. Anything about the water services delivery plan that you want to discuss?
Not really, I mean, it's council's made that decision, the water plan signed off on the August council, it's now available. So that would have the establishment of the CCO by the 1st of July 2027. So we're starting to do a lot of work on what does that look like, and a lot of aspects to that, obviously. Setting up the entity, working out the transfer of staff into the organisation. But from a P&I point of view, the water services delivery plan also outlines that this one we need to anyway. It's sort of we need to work on a bit of a game plan on how we get what I describe as match ready, game ready for that transfer. We're doing a lot of work around our network planning and our strategic sort of view of networks and plans, so not more around asset management. Want to make sure that our forward delivery program is worked up with a view to the data transfer, we're able to hand across, coherent, comprehensive planning and strategies and a forward work program in many respects. Friday we'll be doing with the council, and on Monday we'll be doing some same things for the CCO. But a lot of work being done around that, which also requires a lot of extra work. In addition to BAUs, we're trying to look through how we resource that as well. So
how many internal QLDC staff will transfer over to the new entity?
I don't know. I can't remember. We did, it was part of the NTU, which was the original Labor government. We did a lot of numbers, but it's, I don't know, probably 50, 60, something.
Pretty significant, isn't it?
Oh, it's very good.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's a wholesale change.
Yes.
In terms of, delivery of all of this type of activities will be very much material into the
part of
CPO.
it is also looking at the impact of the making reforms, which will probably get a change in role. Other government initiatives around local government, what's called business, what's not called business. So regional deals, there's a lot of things at the moment that it's not your normal BAU.
Yep.
These are quite substantive things to work through, and I suppose from a P&I point of view, focus is also how do we continue to maintain BAU service, how do we manage to continue to deliver all this, also going through that change, keeping people motivated, engaged. That's a bit of a task for us.
That asset management work, is that, like, I imagine in my head, it's sort of cleaning up the house, getting it ready for sale, so that, people know what the paint colour is on the walls and all the other stuff. Does that asset management's work come from this, tidying up of roles and responsibility, or is that always a natural progression that you were going to do?
So one of the outcomes of the P&R review, which was a year ago now, was to establish the strategic asset management plan. That was irrespective of any local government, we formed the three wars.
Yeah.
As a recognition that we needed to substantially beef up our capability in that space, effectively to understand what it is that we owned, its capacity, its capability, its constraints, and it had been an area that various teams to try and build, but have not really landed. So one of the outcomes, key outcomes of the review was to beef that up. And so you've seen that recently in terms of Alison Tomlinson and do strategic asset management, the policy stuff. We're starting to see, we've actually recruited, I think the team's now about 3 or 4 of the 3 board of asset management.
Yeah, that's right.
Always been really strong.
And now a independent team in its own right.
There's an independent team, so we've got a 3 borders asset management team, we've got a road asset management team. The road team's always been quite some time, mainly because the NZTA subsidy for 51% requires us to meet a whole lot of requirements that drove that 3 borders wasn't quite so much. We've been able to recruit some really good people, so we're starting to see the fruits of that. So even if we're doing a CC, if we're looking at the council decided to do an enhanced internal structure, we'd still be on the same path. It's fundamentally about understanding what we've got, and of course with underground assets, there's a whole lot of issues with that. As part of that work, it's cleansing the data. We find a lot of data errors in here. It's about getting really good people who can actually use that. I remember years ago being told that you need to get good data, you need to get it into a system that then gives you information, but then you need people to turn that information into knowledge on which to make decisions. And so try and beat those 3 things. And we're seeing the other component to that is also all of our new contracts, our roading maintenance contracts, our water maintenance contracts, our facilities maintenance, all have very clear asset data requirements and integration with our systems, which again hasn't really happened all that well in the past. So certainly in terms of we're on that path, and so the idea is that with the CCO, that team would move across with all that information, data, knowledge, systems, and be able to carry on. It's a critical part of future management, whichever model we take.
I think it's so important. It's so good to see it happening because you look around a lot around other parts of the country and looking after the assets, and I think I'd really take my hat off that work, what was presented the other day, and it all feeds into your renewals program. We're working on increasing the amount of depreciation with it, because if we don't do that, we end up in a situation, or dare I say, like Wellington. So yeah, I think it's really good. And also I found fascinating reading well, not fascinating, I found so useful reading the Word of Service delivery plan. If you want a good update on the whole system, read that plan. I think they did an excellent job with your team, and I thought in one plan it brings it all together. Really,
Council use AI in that use, is it?
A little bit. In some of these areas we can use some AI.
Quite effective.
But the key thing really is people. The guy Highland who's come from Wellington Water, he's doing some marvelous stuff. So we've done a whole lot of modelling in the past. A lot of it was based on business cases for improvements. He's first time really a lot of it pull that together, and he's constructed network models that show all the connections, and you can do things like change demand here or change demand there, and it's got all the condition assessment data and things. Still needs a bit of work, but first time we're seeing it. So a critical part of that work, which isn't listed here, is on the SIP team, which is the strategy and infrastructure planning team. Big task we're sitting down is to do network
Service plans.
Network service plans. So there's going to be 4 of them. Wastewater and water. So one for this side of the hill, one for the other side of the hill, which will, in my terminology, outline and describe the networks that we've got, the extent of those networks, the capacity, the constraints, the future development needs, take account of the growth of gender, describe what it is that we've got, be a live sort of document that's viewable, reliable, testable. Because one of the things we've found through the water service delivery plan is the disparate nature of some of that information, and some of that information being held in people's heads and not being sort of done.
Well, that's already fed into the Southern Corridor structure plan. That's the first time I see it in the integration side of it with the water in particular.
So it's sort of a bit of a significant improvement program on there, and it's something that historically hasn't been well resourced for a range of reasons to make focus on other things. So, but that becomes the SIP team, which we call the Strategy and Infrastructure Planning team, and the SAM team, being the Strategic Asset Management team, are critical components around understanding better what our assets are, understanding what our service delivery needs are, understanding what our future needs are, putting all that together, which then helps us a lot better.
Nice. Yeah, I think the simulation is really key because I know Catherine's doing some work around finances and having inputs and outputs rates. And I think, talking to Ed Guy around a bit of the history around how fast and loose it used to be. It's great to see.
Although I think when we do those network plans, sort of, in terms of water, wastewater, I think stormwater well over here, something I'm sure the community would be interested in. Sort of bring it over at some point and go, here's the plans, what the plan's looking like. Where's growth happening? Where are the constraints happening? Have we captured that correctly? Those sort of things. It does sound
It's pretty, I think it was about the next one of the next structure plans is Wānaka South and or one in Queenstown. But so for that sort of activity, feeding that into it is pretty important.
Although it's not a Upper Clutha issue, we are going to get questions about this. Can you give us a quick update on where we are with Shotover, with the new reactors that are coming online, just so that we're prepared for those questions?
Yeah. So Shotover, the second treatment train's now running, which is a good thing, which means that the oxidation ponds have been largely turned off. I don't know if we've turned them off completely. We have turned them off.
So the new reactor is now, and the new clarifier working as expected currently.
So are we getting better results from the wastewater that's coming out of those reactors?
We're getting the results we expected.
Yeah, and one of the issues in terms of the real issue is not injury, it's the disposal. The disposal fields that have failed spectacularly, and then that led to the direct discharge to the shallow, which of course all sorts of proof. The disappointing thing, I think, we have put out misinformation. It's just frankly disinformation around that you could be mistaken thinking that we were discharging little bobby bits that popping out over any other pond. So we're actually working through a process. So we've got that short-term consent, which allows us to discharge. And as we tried to say, we had at the time we had the option for us where the poor option of discharging to the river or worse options, worse if that's a word. And so done a lot of work now. It's Becca done the investigation work, a lot of work around basically the disposal field options. It's been a long list, it's now down a short list. That's the next stage. Coming back to council, looking to come back probably in November with here's where that works ended up. The options are a number of discharge options on the delta, which would be effectively discharged to water, or potentially a land-based option, which really only the one by one at the moment looks like to be the one up Deacon Falls and kind of explains with the IQ up on the Frankton Flats area, which has very large costs, capital costs, operating costs, and a risk of failure at the time. So, so we're looking at bringing all that back in November, taking a report to council probably in late January, February for a decision about what we apply for, because we have to apply for the long-term replacement by May of next year in accordance with the short-term concerning enforcement order. So, thank you both. We know that the discharge to the delta will be seen by many as being unacceptable. Couple of things to that. The present government's looking at change in the water discharge regulations, wastewater discharge regulations, and the nature of our treated effluent that we're currently discharging, particularly with the second train, well exceeds that was quite a low level of discharge, which is, I think it was, so they're saying that was too low, it's just unacceptable. But potentially if council could, under what we understand those regulations, be able to get a 35-year discharge to consent to discharge into probably the Kaura through some kind of disposal field option. I should also mention that any discharge in the Delta has stiff iwi opposition. They think that any discharge to the Delta is just completely unacceptable from a cultural point of view. So that's going to be a difficult decision for the council to make. From an environmental point of view, we can demonstrate nature of the discharge is highly treated. It'll meet potentially the new government standards, but it doesn't meet that cultural concern of only discharge to land. But in the Wānaka-Upper Basin, we have the work that's been done around on the shoulder. We demonstrate that land-based disposal options are very few, very expensive to build, very expensive to operate, and ultimately may fail. That's also that sort of outcome that's come out of the southern corridor investigation into the wastewater sphere. So there's going to be some really good decisions coming up.
Wonderful. Next time. No, not wonderful. Wonderful in that we are now more enlightened. Certainly not wonderful about the options. About the rock and the hard place. And maybe there needs to be a focus on what's causing it rather than just what's why are we in this situation, as opposed to trying to deal with the consequences.
So I think in coping with the futuristic growth.
Well, this is
That's one of the things we've proposed recently, strategic long-term thinking. What does our wastewater network and water network look like if we get to a population of say 100,000 on this side of it? You start to think that if that sort of mindset, you might come to differing decisions from just an incremental addition. And that's what we do need to think about. And I think for a long time, this is historically, we haven't really grappled with that long-term view, and we seem eternally surprised by the amount of growth that we have. Shouldn't be. So
that's why we are where we are at the moment, isn't it? Is we don't think long-term.
That's one of the things we need to.
Yeah, or the alternative to say, is this what the natural environment can handle, and therefore that's what the growth can look like, as opposed to it being one leading to the other. You could say, this is
Get the debate about what the natural environment.
And I guess as we grow, is there an opportunity to actually be more inclusive with the developers around this infrastructure development on a smaller scale, where it becomes more community driven and communities actually provide their own infrastructure? If you're doing, land development for 3,000 houses, rather than putting a strain on that in one place, is it not better to maybe think of some alternative systems whereby your communities are actually building their own infrastructure requirements?
That would be a much bigger debate.
I'm just suggesting I'll be open to these discussions.
Jack's probably now we're taking it back. So
historically,
the ad hoc stuff.
where small communities have done that, it's failed over time. Historically, you've got to have a really good system, and public health and environmental impact sort of point of view. There is a good argument to make central provided networks that can manage that properly.
Well, both of us are failing, whether it's the community ones that have failed and ourselves have failed, we're still going down the same old track of failure.
Well, listening to Mike, I think the sentiment is that there's a million developers who want to create bespoke arrangements in order to get their stuff done faster each time. And I think the only thing that we're looking at is the funding aspect of that, whether they want to front foot some of the capital in order to move things along more so than bespoke solutions. Because often, it's all taking a risk on things that are untested, and then we end up paying the consequence further down the track. Either sentiment. I mean, the extra MLE plant, is that your form of redundancy if we are looking long term at a direct discharge to water? I think a lot of people's sentiment is that at least the disposal fields created some sort of buffer before it reached the environment. That's the sentiment.
There may be some limited contact with wetlands or other things, but the reality is it does almost nothing to the nature of the discharge. In many respects, it's Well, that's a good thing. It really provides very little in terms of any benefit. So, and that's why iwi, particularly saying, well, any discharge through a wetland or anything else, and even the nature of that disposal field was effectively direct discharge to water.
But now that you've got two MLE plants, is that effectively a redundancy? If one stops working, the other one can keep going, or how does that work?
To a point, but no, not full redundancy, no.
Right.
So keeping up demand.
What is the answer to redundancy then if something goes wrong? Because I mean, I think that like when we look at the macro environment, that's what people are interested in. Is like, sure, fine if it all works well. As soon as it doesn't work well, we're going straight to the river with it. And that's the sensitivity, I think, where the disposal field home comes from, as much as it's to Wānaka through why. But what has been explored around redundancy and sort of safeguards in that respect?
So there's inlet calamity and outlet calamity being catered for, and then obviously that would need to be circulated back into the plant if there was a fatal flaw with the plant and it needed to be repaired, for instance. But I mean, we can't stop the flow is the difficulty. So you either have a pond-based system or a reactor like what we have, or two reactors now.
Yeah.
So the only way to stop is to stop flushing the toilets.
No, I understand that. I think, just like is there more capital investment and additional, like if I was on a yacht, I'd have a generator, even if I didn't use it, and at the time that I'd need it, sort of thinking of the equivalent for the waste treatment plant.
Which is those storage ponds.
Yeah.
That they have limitations as well.
But it's effectively, it's like running a river type system, what comes in instead of coming out. There's no real way to stop
There's
that.
no losses, there's no
Unless you suddenly duplicate everything, but even if you duplicate them, you've still got that capacity.
Is there a need for a third reactor so that you've got that capacity if one
yes, long term, yeah.
But how long term is long term? Is it?
I believe the current plant has a 30-year design horizon, 2048 or thereabouts.
It's won't be 30 years, more like 20. So, and we're looking at one of the issues around the network plans is to look at what that future capacity is going to be, and do we continue to consolidate, or do we look for other options around that?
But do you have the capacity at the moment to actually take one offline to do? So probably if you understand now with the reactors there, you've got the ability to take one offline to do a full service on it.
Well, that's what's happening, but it's very limited, and as growth happens, that becomes less. Over in Shotover, we need still to use the oxidation ponds because the one was expression paid for with the plug.
Yeah.
So
should we not be bringing the third reactor forward so that you have got that capacity?
we're looking at that, but it's a question where would we put it?
Okay.
And considering decentralisation, so
Yeah.
that in fact we're not relying on one site. Maybe that responds to your question.
Yeah.
Long term, that resilience actually means that we're not reliant on one site.
One of the options in the Southern Corridor plan is to have another treatment plant out there and then pipe the treated water back to a disposal system somewhere else. That's one of the options. So, yeah.
I'm going to push forward. We've got 10:30.
Wait, I have a response around Cane Road. It's from Ben. I'll read it out to make sense of it. Cane Road has traffic calming planned around Windmill Corner. Read a threshold at each end of the village with line markings, possibly curbs and signage. But to be effective should be combined with the speed limit reduction. So ideally installation would be aligned to speed management plan consultation. Work we're involved in. Should the speed management project be delayed, I anticipate Cane Road will progress within the next year, but with temporary speed signage instead. Make sense?
Yep. I suppose it'd be interesting for you, Cody, just to sort of see exactly where that treatment is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think given the level of appetite.
So the workshop infrastructure committee is on Thursday.
Yeah.
Talking about speed management.
Yes.
Coming back, responding to the question. I don't know if this one's on there or not, but if you
Would be indeed. That's what.
putting where else and we're just taking a note, we'll just check. And then golf course roundabout sounds like routine maintenance for RFS for down potholes and marking. Dan will assess markings and unless urgent would wait for full network remark reviews annually. So all to be aware, the roundabout upgrade is on the mine improvement program and attracted NZTA funding. It is planned for delivery this LTP period, still working on developing agreements for final design. Construction won't be this summer.
No.
anticipate procurement early next year, construction commencing winter and complete circa March 2027. I know that Simon Mason's talked about, also need to talk with Mr. Dippy about the roundabout upgrade. So we can think about some of the So, I'm impressed.
Thank you very much. Just thanks for coming over. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
It's just, yeah, you've got a couple of actions, so we'll work through those. In due course. Yep, Niall. Good team. It's
We'll get up the hot seat. Hot seat or hot seat?
Oh, very much.
But that was actually put specifically.
Yeah, I understand.
Christina. What would you like to start with, the governance agreement or the terms of reference?
Governance agreement, I thought was probably the easier one to start with. I mean, I come not necessarily with a completely blank sheet, but really just not sensing any. I'm not getting any big direction from within the officer side of things. So really, it's just whatever conversations you've had, how you think it's working so far. Do you feel any changes in your time of reflection at the end of this triennium?
And we had a workshop planning session the other day and talked through some of this stuff. So we might just go around the table with a couple of things I had in here is, could we just, that board budget that we have of 15 grand, can we just have that referenced here in this governance agreement as well, that there is a book. Yeah, we just need to just say to acknowledge that there is a budget.
That's the one from the Democracy Services Governance budget, yes.
Yeah. Okay. The 15 grand that allows us to community engagement.
Yeah.
So that was all. I just thought that it sort of would have been good there. Then the only other one that we talked about and the protocols for governance, the second bullet point, the board will be consulted on policy and planning documents. And we just wanted, rather than consulted on, involved in the planning of or engaged in the development of. We just wanted that language to be slightly more inclusive as opposed to consulting as we've done it, what do you think of it? As in, let's get together and see how we can do this planning. So words like engaged, involved, not just consulted. So that was just the two that I had, but others did have. Yeah. So I don't think there was anything major. Laura, did you mark up anything from your?
No. What you covered there was good.
Yeah. Did anyone else have anything?
No, that was my main key point from last week's meeting too.
So it captured that. So, and Cody wasn't there. Anything from you, Chris?
I was just the as part of it, I mentioned our submission to the annual plan feels like it's just another submission, not from people that know what they're doing in theory. And to be involved in some of the, or input into what actually ends up in there, rather than waiting for oh, this is what we're going to talk to you about. Be able to get into a situation where we can say, these are the things that are really important from whether the groups or people and that sort of thing. Feeling like it's ownership to our side of the annual plan, if you like, or the 10-year plan.
So let me quick pause on that. So that's cool. That did come up and we've got some notes around that's around the terms of reference on that first page of the terms of reference.
That's right.
So I think we can close off those couple of tweaks for that governance agreement.
If I may, I wonder in that second one where we talk about the board being consulted on, which we're now looking to say around engaged, evolved, something more inclusive, is on policy and planning documents, whether we potentially look to extend that description a bit more as well to include sort of early engagement on the annual plan and LTP. So kind of it.
Well, yes, that I suppose if it sits well in there, I think absolutely, because it's explicit over here on the terms of reference. But yeah, the policy and planning documents is only one part of that bigger long-term, 10-year, 3-year plan. Yes, so agreed.
Just thinking when we've, I guess the team already looking at the community board be brought into the annual plan earlier and the LTP earlier. So it's, I guess, just belt and braces the more we sort of
makes a lot of sense. For us, when we come down sitting table, it doesn't really matter whether it's planning and policy or 10-year plan or 3-year plan. It's basically that longer term vision, getting community input and community board input around it. Okay. So if we just go to that first page of the terms of reference, actually, I just had a question. That parent body, the Wānaka-Upper Clutha Community Board, reports to the Queenstown Lakes District Council. I just had a general question. Do we report to the QLDC?
They just watch us.
Well, there's an option for you to report as council.
No, I think it's not the act of reporting. It's sort of like it's the parent, it says parent body, as in we report to the QLDC.
Well, we're not a committee of council, but.
No. Do we report?
Maybe it's engage again.
Oh, no, it's that legal term, like
It's under the parent body.
Are we legally, do we report into, do we report into? Well,
I'm
just wondering, I'm not trying to tweak it around or anything else like that. I'm just trying to sort of, I don't feel as just in a practical sense, I don't feel that we report into the QLD. I feel that we're slightly more an independent body that works alongside and has its own delegations and everything. Do we really report into?
Are you sort of referring to a decision that comes past the board first, or anything has to go to council?
That's a really good point. No, I'm certainly not thinking about that. It's just that, it's just that high level thing. Like, does it need to be there? Does it need to say? And where in the legislation does it say that the community board reports into the council?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
It makes it subservient, and I know in some ways we do, but then we do have some autonomy as well. And I just really like us to think. Well, you to think about that, and actually it does specifically say that.
I'd like to have a work at the wording in the act.
Yes.
Well, I think it does refer back to the act and sort of say, does it?
I can't remember the exact wording, but yeah.
So let's come back to us on that. It's
pointed through council.
So the other one was then that the terms of reference, responsibilities and key projects. Just that first one, represent and act as advocate for the interests of, rather than its community, I think the Wānaka-Upper Clutha community. I think we just need to be specific there. Anyone jump in, and I'm going to go line by line here. Second one, I didn't have anything, consider report or matters referred to by council. Third one was, we struggled a little bit with this one, maintain an overview of services provided by the council within the community. Like maintain an overview, we didn't actually really understand what that means. So does it mean monitor? Does that mean, what does actually maintaining an overview? It sounds very placid.
So would that, like, for example, what we just had from P&I, is that's getting an overview of certain, I don't know, I'm just trying to understand how it works.
So maintaining
An example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I suppose that's, as you said, the language therefore is perhaps a bit, as you say,
tepid.
Yeah. So, whereas I guess with the quarterly meetings that have come through from community services with P&I, the one you showed Tony, I guess some of the intent there is for you to be able to feed back into that and help shape it. So rather than sitting back and just monitoring, it is more about, again, it's that involvement with it's understanding what's happening and being able to directly influence.
Engage with an overview.
Well, it's like it's providing some oversight, some input. I think I think it needs some more active, engaged language there rather than a very maintain an overview. I think we're not just overviewing; we are actually then feeding back and informing.
But in some ways, we are the culture. The overview can also include feedback we get from the community of
Yes,
services that are provided.
100%
relate back. So it's
The difficulty I think with it, and I'm not trying to get down into semantics, but maintain is very neutral and overview is very neutral. And I just think the language needs to be reflect basically a little bit more of our engagement. Two-way, as Barry was saying, two-way flow in information. So you're a crafter of the English language, you will do that. Now, the next one down, and Chris has alluded to that, prepare an annual submission to the council for expenditure within the community. I think we agreed that we do have a role in doing in that, but that needs to be prefaced, or a second bullet point in front, partake in planning sessions with ELT to prioritise investment and expenditure in the community. What we're trying to get there is that there is actually, what you were saying, that broader involvement around planning, and not just we turn up every year with an annual submission that goes in once with 30 other annual submissions. Yeah. So we're keeping that, but we do need that other
on it for that earlier engagement.
Partake in planning sessions with ELT to prioritise investment and expenditure in the community. The next one down was communicate with community organisations and special interest groups. I think there's maybe engage, which does include communicate. I don't think we just sort of act as a conduit. I think we are actually, we go to the AGMs, we invite them to our workshops. I think there is something more active than just communicate.
Like interact or?
Yeah, well, you interact, engage.
Have to go to the thesaurus and think some words.
Yeah, but I just think the communication is just one aspect of it. I think we're actually more involved.
Yep.
The next one, encourage and an integrated strategic, so the and should be an and. Encourage an integrated strategic approach to long-term issues. Yep. I suppose I had a question mark around this. Encourage an integrated strategic approach to long-term issues and opportunities inform board decision-making and key council processes and documents. A little wordy. What's the actual crux of that? Has it been superseded by some of the stuff we've done before? Are we encouraging an integrated strategic approach to long-term issues and opportunities to inform?
We just talked about that. We're encouraging.
If everyone's not comfortable with it, I just read that and
It's quite wordy.
We can try and just tidy it up.
And
I think
the board should have a capital meeting.
Yeah, no.
He's way better than me.
Engaged in integrated strategic approach to long-term issues. Bang, finish it. What does it say after that? Why does it say and opportunity, blah, blah, blah? So next, just, of course, those would come into it.
Let's see how, so I'll refine it. The next one, undertake any other responsibilities that are delegated to it by the council. That's fair comment. Two other new ones that I had before I throw it open. Act as a conduit for the Wānaka Asset Sales Reserve. I think we'd want in our, because we've done a lot of work around the sales reserve. And I think we just want it reflected that we are not a gatekeeper, but we are certainly a conduit for that and the first point of reference for the community, and then we feed it through. I think it's, initiate, we've heard words, initiate, conduit, facilitator, just something like that. The asset reserve is the key one.
Yeah.
And then again, we might have had this before, a new one, provide QLDC with local insights and knowledge around planning and delivery of projects in the Upper Clutha. That again might be woven in somewhere else, but I do think one of the big things we do is someone comes to us, we go, oh, we do this, we go, have you thought about that? Have you connected with that? Have you thought about that pathway? Have you thought about that timing? Those sorts of things, I think, is where we provide that value, is that local knowledge and insight. And that hopefully can be reflected somewhere.
Yeah, it's the next level down from the integrated strategic approach thing. Next level down, basically providing. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, that's where we add our value. Have you thought about that? Well, hey, you're nuts, because that's been tried before or whatever.
Yep, that all sounds quite reasonable. Cool. I can play with some wording around that.
Yeah. So before we close it, go on the next page. Has anyone else got? I tried to incorporate what we talked about.
Yeah,
was there anything under responsibilities and key projects that we wanted added or tweaked? Well, then let's move on to the delegated authority. I don't think there was anything there. And then the power to act. The Wānaka-Upper Clutha Community Board will, again, it's got prepare submissions to the 10-year plan.
Should be annual.
Be involved in the draft of.
Well, this is power to act is slightly more prescriptive. Where's this coming from? Is this coming from the Act?
Well, some of it would be limited by the Act,
Okay.
things that you can't do. So obviously council couldn't give you the ability to set a bylaw or a rate or anything like that.
So,
This is really essentially what the council is delegating you to do as a decision unto itself, a thing that you can do. So I guess the responsibility, the sort of terms of reference is very much that reflecting the kind of bigger picture around involvement. Specifically, the Power Act is more about this is what you can do.
We can prepare submissions, we can lodge and present submissions to external bodies, make decisions. Yeah. How do you read the power to act in conjunction with the responsibilities and the ones we just talked about in the terms of reference?
Well, I believe we have got the power to make submissions, so I should say that whether we put something additional to what was referenced up in the terms of reference, I don't know what, at a higher level, more direct rather than just a submission.
I mean, do we really make, I think we made one submission. I think
I think on the annual plan that we should, that we really bring it together for all the community associations, pick out what, for overall and really put more weight behind some of these submissions, some parts of these. But then on the other hand, we got asked sometimes to submit on resource consent. Well, that gets really dodgy because you're in the whole community and
we made it to the Methodist external bodies, we've made it submissions to NZTA, LGC, we've certainly done those two. I think we've done one to one of the annual plans or the 3-year plans. We didn't do it last year because it was a fatal complete.
But you could do an ORC one, those sort of things, you know.
I think we have done ORC actually.
We could look at
transport plans. Yes,
some of the ones the council does on the reforms by government. We could if we wanted. It's a matter of getting down and doing it.
Yeah.
And look, making sure we all represent the whole community. So
We need staff.
no. Yeah. Well, the other thing is to encourage the individual to make price. It's tricky, but I think it gives you the power to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
I get the sense that I'm getting from not here, just people talking to me is that they're writing a submission on stuff that has been written, if you like, by council, rather than us saying we would like to talk to you about whatever it happens to be. It's come through the community as a concern or something.
What was for example?
No, but give me an example. I think one. But just something that we nothing's coming to mind.
Well, maybe if you look at the intensification plan, for example, and you have a lot of people just cut and paste and they do mass submissions. I think that sort of thing's going to change in the future. I think around that cut and pasting of mass organisations, it doesn't even appear if you live here or not.
I think what I'm getting is that the community would like to be involved in, and the intensification things a little bit outside of just council, but getting it put into the plan or 10-year plan or whatever, and having some involvement in how it's progressed from there. Or us saying, oh no, we don't want to put it in at all, rather than it being put in there by somebody else and then we consult it all on in a submission written by us with the same weight as personal.
Yeah, it's interesting because okay, when you go back to people say, okay, we'll put a submission in, and then some of our key issues we've had recently, we've got 120 submissions on one of their biggest issues, and then on the liquor store in Palware we get over 500 submissions. So it's
very well organised.
But that's one of the ones where they get
And that's what I'm saying.
numbers. It's not a numbers game sometimes.
It's not.
Anyway, I'm sorry, we get into a big debate about the submissions.
Okay. So anything else under the power to act or power to recommend? Again, I haven't marked up anything there other than the power to recommend. Can we put the Wānaka Asset Sales Reserve in the power to recommend as well?
Yeah, let's tidy that up.
please do just there. Again, it's to Barry's point, we can make a recommendation, but these are the times when council has the final decision-making authority.
I suppose if you think of that sort of terms of reference responsibility, the key projects is more of the kind of broader principle.
Yes.
And then the power to act in the specific things that you need.
And then we've got delegation limitations. Like, I mean, I read through that and I actually thought that they were quite broad in a way, and it's up to us to utilise them when need be. But we do know the difficulty with the community board is, like councillors in some ways, we want to do it, we have to effectively do the work ourselves to get it there, as opposed to briefing staff that go and do the hard mahi and then bring it back to us. And that's a little bit of the challenge that there is. It's very permissive, a lot of this stuff, but it's reasonably arduous putting some of this stuff together. Georgia, what do you like at writing submissions?
It's a prioritise the real important stuff. Yeah, interesting that I like this one here. Recommend the use of borrowing to fund works or facilities in the Upper Clutha. That's quite fascinating.
Well, just going back to the governance agreement, I mean, it does actually say the council's chief executive will ensure the board is provided with complete, timely and robust information, support and advice to enable it to carry out its role. So the governance agreement says we should have that backup to do those submissions.
And technically, that's why we introduced the role.
Yes.
Was to provide more support for the board. So, if you wanted to say, do a submission to another NZTA project, for example, or then, and as the board, if you kind of threw together your bullet points, then, the resource is there to assist in pulling that together as a formal submission.
And I think that's fair enough, because when we first started, we had Jane over in Queensland, we didn't have anyone here, and it was, travelling all the time. And then we got Matthew, and that was great. So there's been some localisation, and now we've got Georgia. So
and you're still great too.
Yeah. Well, early days, great. But it sort of made that change. Suddenly we had someone that was actually here, didn't have to worry about getting caught in weather or traffic, roadworks and stuff coming out. It's been good. Maybe for the next term, this could be taken to the next level now that we're used to having that, or it's available to us. Maybe we can be more proactive in some of these areas. But as far as the document goes, it is reasonably permissive.
Yeah. Gives you the option.
Meanwhile, George is re-examining her positions.
I'm sure you want something a little bit more stimulating than just taking minutes.
She does more than just take minutes.
And well, with us.
We'll just talk about it for a bit longer.
Yeah, she's an answer.
So then probably a lot more stuff came down on this table, Niall, and there did seem to be, someone ran out a bit of steam here because there was a few contradictions. So one of the big takeaways I had from the team here is distinguish between recommendation and approval. And we know that the final tick is where the decision is made. I just think we might not do it here, but just going through and saying, really, is this, if we've got the last tick in the box, are we actually doing the approval or are we doing recommendations? Maybe just getting a little bit more clarity there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just for you to go through and say, really. The other one was LTOs, and we didn't decide this at the meeting. Where are we sitting with licence to occupiers? And we sort of talked about it should come to us if it was meaningful, but does it need to come to us if it's a temporary 2-day licence occupy thing and then a lot of work? So where do we sit on licence to occupiers?
We thought they weren't even mentioned it either.
Oh, and they weren't actually mentioned. Yeah, that was the other problem. I think we've done.
It's really good to be aware of them. I don't know that we need to get involved with them, but I think,
Could we be notified of licence to occupy, and then if we have an interest in it, raise it that way? Was that too complicated?
No, I'm going to be here. I mean,
as an example, just in a reserve, say a public walkway, greenway space, and the contractor's got 3 diggers going in and out of a private residence to put in swimming. Just say, I'm just giving this as out there. And he's driving 3 diggers up and down a reserve space. and you're walking past that every day and you think, well, what a mess you're making. Is there a license to occupy? How do we know that without sort of,
Yes, it's a good question, and I mean, I don't know the answer, and I can't connect for the license to occupy team. But I mean, I suppose one solution could be that if it's a temporary LTO, that is
most
something
people
that
are, oh, suppose we see some.
if you were comfortable with that, and they were comfortable with that, that'd be something that could just be reported back to the chair's report for awareness. Or summarised as a report for noting from the team to say, by the way, these have come through and we've approved them, you'll see them, there's some details.
Yeah.
But if it was a more longer term LTO, then that might be something that we bring back for a formal decision.
Yeah, well, look, the overhanging on Sir John Lodge Drive, the overhanging, the licence to occupy airspace for the veranda effectively comes to us all the time. So that is long term. Then there was a question that we had with Adam, like we're getting the same sorts of things coming in all the time that they're just, a block down or a few doors down. We were going, is there more? And then there's this big paper put together. Is that an efficient use of staff's time? Is it,
I think there's two stages of that, Simon, because one's for scaffolding, which is a temporary,
sure.
and the overhang is the long term.
Yep.
So I think from a safety perspective, it's important to be engaged with temporary scaffolding, and that was a classic that 3 parts on because it was already up and
I
operating.
think of that as retrospective.
It's all retrospective anyway, but it was good to know that they had at least applied, and it was just late coming to the board, and it wasn't particularly safe. So I think
We don't have a safety role.
no, I think we do as a community representative. If you see something unsafe, I think you have a role to report that.
We gave a role report that, but that's different from the LTO. We don't see the health and safety plan, and we don't actually want the liability of actually saying that you've approved that.
Taking that on, but I just think it's an overall, again, just an awareness of these things. So maybe there is just like some that are approved by council that we're aware of, and others for the long term actually that do come across to the board.
I mean, we'll take away nothing else to talk with the LTO. One of the problems is it's not actually it's not actually here. There is no LTOs. Yeah, it takes up, it's the one thing that we do more of at function committee board meetings and anything else is approved LTOs.
Yeah.
Which is perverse. Is that a good use of staff time? Do they have to do these reports anyway and they just sort of tweak to put it in? Is there a difference between temporary and longer term ones? Is there a different sort of threshold there? We are running the risk that we have even less things on the agenda and get a hard time for not having stuff on the agenda. But we don't need to, what is it? We don't have to make work. What is it? When you create work to justify yourself.
Self-perpetuating.
It's not very often, it's not very often that a bureaucratic organisation asks you to provide less information. So
All the time you can spend doing submissions.
Yeah, so, but back to Simon point about the recommendation, because you got it here, decision by 2, I don't know, and that's why we need to change it, understand exactly what each sector doing.
Yeah, we can.
And I don't know what some of it goes to committees after the committee board, I don't know which committees it goes to sometimes.
If we go to, I'll run through the things that I'd marked up that the team had here. If we go to, one of the things is, can we actually get it in alphabetical order? It's a sort of an alphabetical order for a wee bit, and then it breaks out of alphabetical order. Just it starts with artwork, and then all of a sudden T comes before L and stuff. So that would just be helpful. It's slightly like me inclined along that. Elderly persons housing, we're involved in the maintenance. It's got us as a tick as a maintenance. I just don't think that we actually get involved in the maintenance of elderly persons housing. So I just put a question mark around that.
I suppose actually in reality we've passed those all over to the trust. So
It's probably irrelevant there.
Okay, so that whole elderly persons housing, let's look at that. Did we talk about the tracks under footpaths and walkways? We talked about the Tracks Trust, and it's just got Tracks Trust. And did we talk about that relationship? Do you find out more about?
Sorry, no, I didn't.
Okay. So I just want to circle around the Tracks Trust. We think that the Tracks Trust, because we have a community board representative on there, we have some relationship. But what does the TIC mean next to Tracks Trust? What does it actually mean? The Ligoro Siphon Control. Yeah, which I noticed was actually in the paper the other day.
Yeah, it's just been released, and I sit on the Guardians for the board. So again, it's very similar to John's situation. So we do have a representation on the board, from the board, on the lakes of the Guardians of the Lakes, which we've been discussing that management plan all term, basically. So now it has been publicly released. There is information that they don't necessarily want shared across everybody or become public before it's actually been approved. So
Well, that's the case where you
It's just that we've got we actually coming to us for approval. That's what this tick says. It says a tick with the last tick in the column for the management plan for that control. I wouldn't even seen it the last 3 years. So actually either that needs to actually come to us.
Isn't that a Lynn's function?
that is a limit.
Or then, so we should maybe give it, should it be. So it's one or the other. Either it's us and we're responsible for it.
I think we used to have more of a role involved with this, but it seemed to have stepped away.
And then the last one, even though it shouldn't be because of alphabetically, trees on council land. It's got, we are responsible for appeals to applications under the tree policy in the ward. That's cool, we've got that. Then we've got location, species, and then the officer is planting. Do we really have a responsibility over location and species?
I don't think we do under the new tree policy, but that's my understanding.
Just maybe making sure that the tree policy and these terms of reference match up.
Yeah, I know we added in the appeals to application from the tree policy, obviously once the tree policy was updated, but yes, I can't confirm that we went back and looked at those other three.
Because the other things is species. I mean, otherwise we haven't seen a paper in the last 3 years saying that this planting's to be done and these are the species, can you sign off them? There's a specific thing around reserves, but that was part of the golf club wanting to do a major thing. I think that's, also why did that come to us?
Well, I think that's the reason why, and I think it's important that sometimes they do, because in this situation, we still don't have any say on it, Simon. When it did go to the golf course, it was already pre-signed off by council. It was just a tick box exercise that it was coming to the board.
That's what I'm saying, it's not.
And so it wasn't really, but I think we should be, because in another situation, we've had an application where they're removing, for example, 2,500 square metres of established tree planting and replacing it with 100 square metres. I think the board needs to be aware of that. So we're not losing overall tree canopy space within, that's reduction of established.
So there's two things here. I think if it's in here, then it needs to come to us. There's no wiggle room. And if it doesn't want to come to us, we shouldn't have it in here. And I think we could go through a few of these and go, if they've just been a rollover or a throwback from many years ago, I think I'd rather have fewer of these terms of reference, but they actually meaningful, as opposed to this exhaustive list that you sort of go, well, we've never seen that before.
It'll be hard for the staff on, because it might be really small, one type tree type process.
It could be addressed through the tree policy.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
I think it's something we need to get.
Like the one with the swimming pool, we've got to decide the location of the swimming pool when we decide. That won't happen very often.
Well,
I suppose swimming pools is another one. I'm guessing would be a public pools? No.
It might be.
Well, we have one stay in the location.
Design, funding.
We don't, the funding's a bigger. I'm just trying to bring it up. It's a swimming pool, doesn't happen very often. So.
But these are meant to be enduring.
Okay, that's fair. No, I'm sorry. I don't want to change
20 years time. Has anyone else got any? I look at something like staff issues, and it's got 3 ticks under officer, and it's got nothing in the community board. Do we really need that in our terms of reference? If it's got nothing to do with us, why are staff issues in there? Is it to highlight that
it's got nothing to do with
is it meant to highlight, well, you could have thousands of those that have nothing to do with us.
What we could do under delegations and limitations, or is the power to employ staff, actually expand that a bit further to employ, direct, whatever, and actually remove that element.
This is pretty for new elected members that come in October. I mean, it's pretty daunting to get your head around this. So I think less is more a little bit. So some of these things, if it doesn't have anything to do with us, and that's probably a very obvious one, does it need to be there? Just trying to think of
service delivery, just above that, so the monitoring. I'm just trying to see what that is. Monitoring the service delivery. So we've got a decision-making role there. I don't understand what that is, but if we could have a paper come and decide whether we wanted to increase the monitoring to something like parking wardens or something, is that the sort of thing would go in there? So we'd have a decision on that. Yeah, I'm not sure what it'd be.
Whereabouts are you?
Under service delivery, just above staff issues.
Right.
It's got specification level of service, I can be involved in that, and delivery is staff, and monitoring, we make the call, a decision on monitoring.
Would
And then it's deciding that if a payment came in about wanting to increase, what it would be.
Again, is that back to the comment I think from earlier from Simon's, is that a recommendation as opposed to
Yeah, right.
So that's
Okay.
clarification of what's a recommendation as opposed
Yeah,
to.
obviously, we can make recommendations.
Yeah.
Just trying to understand what sort of paper will be sitting on the count, on the committee table for the decision.
Potentially you'd add another column in there between officer and the recommendation rather than decision,
Yes.
possibly.
Without getting too, just the, just more a bit see. And then those ones with all the dot, okay.
Those are the ones that you get.
Right, occasionally. So look, I think those are the ones that came up. So the plan is to refine this and then it'll be presented for at the first board meeting. Yeah. So there will be another chance for the new elected members to go through this.
Yes.
I think we're playing our part and sort of maybe tidying it up a little bit.
And that was the hope, to sort of based on your experience in the last 3 years.
And it was part of the local government commission's suggestion, so we can put a tick against that as well, that we would choose that.
Yes, so we'll go away and work on this over the next couple of months and bring that back to the new board in the new term.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. No, I have a question. I mean, we did ask it by email to John, I haven't had a response yet. When the council meeting goes into public screening, are elected community board members considered the public, or are we eligible to sit in on those meetings?
Now I need to seek advice on that.
I asked a similar question
I
about
think
4
it's
years
up to
ago.
the mayor and chair of that meeting, because I've been reviewed once before.
So it comes down to, so there is always discretion of whoever is chairing that meeting. I know elected members, councillors have the right to remain unless they are lawfully excluded. And there's various explanations around what lawfully excluded means in the new standing orders. But I'd need to confirm how that extends to community board members.
If you could, please, I've had to raise that, just some clarification, because sometimes there are things that potentially are of interest to the community board, and obviously we have the same confidentiality requirements.
Very good. No, we've got enough to work on there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
Thanks very much.